Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And today I'm going to talk about my rankings and reviews of the books that I read for non-fiction Group C in the quarterfinals of the Booktube prize. Yes, this video is going up a little bit late. I was supposed to record it yesterday but ended up having another one of those suspected gallstone attacks, which was not a fun time. But I'm sitting here now to film this. So what I'm going to do, I'll go through each of the books that I read for this judging round. I'll talk about them in reverse order. So I'll go from what I rated 6th to 1st. I'll talk about whether my fellow judges agreed with me, and I'll give you a bit of a review of each book as well. So the book I ranked in 6th place was The Doctor's Blackwell, How Two Pioneering Sisters Brought Medicine to Women and Women to Medicine. That's a mouthful. This is by Janice P. Nimura. And like I said, I ranked it 6th in its group of 6, and my fellow judges seem to have agreed with me because this book has not moved forward to the semi-finals. So I was surprised to see that the women, the Blackwell sisters in this book, have been the subject of quite a few other books. So I assume because this book had been voted into the prize, it's got into the quarterfinals, that it must offer something fairly special considering it's not a fresh topic. Having not read the other books on the Blackwell sisters, I can't say if this one is bringing anything new or different, but I can say that I didn't find this book particularly groundbreaking in its approach. So either those other books are not very good, or people just really care about this topic. So this is about two pioneering sisters, Emily and Elizabeth Blackwell, who fought to be educated and accepted by the American medical establishment in the mid-1800s, and doing so paved the way for the women that came after them. The sisters themselves were interesting characters, particularly Elizabeth, who, she made such efforts and shook so many different establishments in order to become something that really she didn't actually seem to be that passionate about being. And her striving to be a recognised doctor wasn't really a feminist stance either. So her drive seemed to be simply proving that she just could do it. Her sister Emily is less of a conundrum because she did seem to have a real interest in medicine. But regardless of the motivations, you can't argue that they didn't further the cause of women being accepted into the field, although I do draw short of saying, like the title suggests, that they were the only ones, because even this book shows that there were other women trying to do the same thing at the same time. I think this book is an interesting look at the lives, the family and the actions of these two sisters. It's accessible, it's well written, and it does strive to strike a balance in how the sisters are represented. But I just didn't find it particularly exciting or a compulsive reading experience. Just something felt a bit flat to me, so that's why I've ranked it 6th. My 5th place goes to Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. My fellow judges agreed, and this book also has not moved forward to the quarterfinals. So, like it says on the tin, this is a diary written by 14-year-old Dara. He's passionate about the natural world around him, and he is also living with autism. And whilst very much this is a nature diary, we also get an insight into Dara's family, their move from one part of Ireland to another, and the bullying that he has experienced, particularly at school and particularly because of his autism. I listened to this as an audiobook, and it's read by Dara himself, and in general I think that always adds a lot to the experience, particularly when it's a memoir. And Dara is no hobbyist when it comes to naturalism. He's a campaigner, he's an activist, and this has opened up opportunities for him, which he also writes about, and his passion does come across when he's reading this in the audiobook. His writing is really is beautiful, and it shows an astounding awareness that I wish I'd had at that age, And I think hearing him read it highlighted how young he was when he wrote this. I don't know how old he is now. I don't know what the time difference is. I think if I had been reading it on the page, it would have come across as being from a much older voice, but hearing him read it it makes it more authentic. I'm not hugely into wildlife, although I do love beautiful nature writing, which this book definitely has. But I found myself zoning out, and I think that's maybe because my interest level doesn't really match the interest level of the intended audience for this book. So that's kind of why I rated it 5th. My 4th place was Chasing Me to My Grave, an artist's memoir of the Jim Crow South by Winfred Rembert. Sorry, I've just been plagued by dog and small child. Yes. What are you doing?
Hello today.
Hello today?
Hello.
What about hello yesterday? Hello tomorrow?
Hello today.
Right, can I do this? Can I do this in peace? I thought you were playing in the garden. Right, off you go. So yes, Chasing Me to My Grave. So I ranked this 4th, but my fellow judges didn't agree with me because it's one of the 3 books that are moving forward to the semi-finals. This is the memoir of Winfred, who grew up and experienced the brutal realities of Jim Crow era Georgia. So from a beginning in the cotton fields with his adoptive family after his mother gave him up, to dancing and getting into trouble with the law, growing up to be a drug dealer, and then later finding himself in his unique leatherwork art. This book is woven together with anecdotes and memories from his life, and I really enjoyed the addition of so many of his works, which really added a layer to this memoir and brought it to life. And Rembert has a great way of sharing a story which is just as vivid as his artwork, and also it feels as if he's telling you in person. It feels just like it's a chat between friends, and through that we get a unique and vitally important account of the horrors that were acted out on the Black community in what is really not very distant history, and unfortunately which there is still far too many parallels to the world that we live in today. However, I wasn't really sold on some aspect of how Winfred or his maybe his collaborator chose to frame the story. I expected this memoir to be about someone who was entrenched in the Black rights movement, given how it sells itself. And I feel there was an effort to frame his mistreatment and his imprisonment in that light. And, you know, obviously the racism and the barbarism of how he and other Black people were treated is appalling, and it makes for really tough, upsetting reading, and is utterly inexcusable. I do feel it's a little bit dishonourable to frame his punishment as being punishment for fighting for Black rights. On both occasions of his imprisonment, they were due to breaking the law. The first time was car theft, and yes, he did steal the car to escape like a riot that broke out at a Black rights march, but then he kind of doubled down on that by continuing to drive around in it and having a bit of fun with it. And then the second time he was imprisoned, it was because he was a drug dealer, and although that started from a place of, you know, necessity to support his family because he was experiencing that systematic racism with like a lack of job opportunities and a lack of health care, again he doubled down on it and made way more money than he needed to, and was living this like lavish, ridiculous lifestyle where he could afford to buy cars that were like, I think there was there was like only a handful made in the whole world, and it had gold on it. So although his punishment, particularly, you know, well, or at least for the car theft, was far beyond what was right and just, and also far beyond what a white person would have received as punishment for the same crime, he wasn't being punished for being an activist. He was being punished for being a criminal, albeit a Black criminal, and, you know, all the extra added punishment, added brutality that comes with it. So while his treatment was, you know, certainly a Black rights issue, to frame him as a civil rights figure feels, to me, dishonest, and also a disservice to those who truly were activists and fighting for civil rights at that time. But having said that, this is an important and interesting book. There's no denying that. I just feel like his story is actually let down by trying to make it something that it isn't. And that's why this book came in fourth for me. My third ranked book was, it's a bit dusty, All In, an autobiography of Billie Jean King. So yes, I rated this third, but my fellow judges didn't agree, and it is not moving forward to the semi-finals. So some of you may remember that when I was faced with the prospect of a sports memoir, I was about as enthusiastic as if I'd been tasked to read a lawnmower manual from start to finish. I am so not interested in sports, and tennis is one of those ones that I dislike most of all because it just gets so much attention and coverage, much like football. And I had never heard of Billie Jean King before, so I didn't even have a familiarity on which to at least try and get excited about this book. However, thankfully, this is not just a sports memoir, and Billie Jean King is not just a tennis player. And also, thankfully, the other things that she did and the other things that this memoir deals with are far more up my street. So, feminism, equal rights, LGBTQ plus history, eating disorders, and those are the things that hooked me into this book, even to the point where I found myself caring about the outcome of some of the tennis matches that she recounts playing. So that's got to say something about the strength of this book. Although at times I did wonder if King was kind of retrofitting activism and a liberal kind of equality focused mindset into her earlier life experiences, I think her track record of what she has achieved and what she's championed still amounts to her being an incredibly driven and inspiring woman. So although I'm not interested in sports, the fight for equality is something I'm passionate about, and that has to encompass all walks of life, even things that I'm not particularly interested in. So the battle that tennis players who are not white straight men was the battle they had to face. It was a huge one. There's no denying that Billie Jean King played a monumental role in the progress that has been made in that sport. That she's then gone on to expand on that with her foundations and her activism is really admirable. She's used her platform for good. And this memoir is honest and it's insightful. And although it's quite a tome, it didn't actually feel like it was something that was tough to work through. And I think we kind of need more Billie Jean Kings in this world. So that's my third rated book. My book in second place was A Little Devil in America, Notes in Praise of Black Performance, and this is by Hanif, Abdurraqib. And my fellow judges have agreed with me because this is one of the three books that is moving on to the semi-finals. So I think I'd said at first I was a bit reluctant about reading this one because for whatever reason I had the impression that this was going to be about early to mid 20th century performers, which I don't have much of an interest in, whether they're white or black or whatever. And that was maybe because the title of this book is actually a quote by a performer from that era, Josephine Baker. But very quickly I realised that is not the case with this book. In this collection of essays, Abdurraqib pulls on, a range of artists, and many are quite contemporary. And with the mix of performers, there's also a mix in his writing style, writing approach. And I found that made a really lovely blend of personal reflection and non-fiction discussion on the wider subject of Black performance. And I learned a lot through reading this about Black, but also more general American history and culture, and also about the intersection of entertainment and politics. This is an essay collection that really, at least for me, brought new perspectives into being about the role that performance plays in how we see others, how others are positioned in society, as well as being a celebration of performance and the Black culture of that art. This was really quite a joyful and thought-provoking book to read, and I went from being reluctant at the start to being kind of disappointed when it was over. So yeah, a well-deserved second place for me. And that means that my first place, I can't pick it up, it's so heavy, was Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Family by Patrick Radden Keefe. And the other people judging this group in the quarterfinals agreed, and this has moved through to the semi-finals. This book is a damning expose of a family who, although possibly maybe had slightly more moralistic roots, that's dubious, have truly sold their souls to the devil of utter deplorable greed. For the sake of wealth and ego massaging, the Sackler family have almost single-handedly created an epidemic of opiate addiction in America, which, you know, it's devastated communities, it's taken many lives, and they have no remorse. I thought this was stunningly well researched, and was able to break down legal and business bullshit that had protected the family, a family that was behind both Valium and OxyContin. And this book still manages to be a page turner whilst being really thorough in its approach and reporting. The Sackler family really do prove that money is at the root of all ills. You know, page by page, we see them rooting deeper into putting profit before people. This is like a horror story of capitalism, you know, building the brand and also hiding in plain sight, as long as you throw enough money around, I suppose. And yeah, I just thought this was an excellent book. I've also slid into the judging pool for the semi-finals, and this time around I am judging the fiction grouping, which now means I've judged every category in the prize. And I'm excited for this one, because, you know, in theory, the closer we get to the finals, the better the book should be. And the fiction final I read for last year was exceptional, and for the ones this year, I think I voted for most of them to make, initially I voted for most of them to make it into the judging stages in the first place. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. And as if to bolster that theory, one of the books in this group I have already read and I've spoken about at length how much I loved it. Unfortunately, I probably won't have time to reread it, but I don't need to, as it has really stayed with me since I read it as a NetGalley, and that is Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. This is about two middle-aged twins and how they are faced with abject poverty and the uncovering of family secrets when their beloved mother dies. As a bonus for the Booktube prize, it's a British book. And apart from the translated fiction round, I felt like the books this year are very US-centric, especially after that non-fiction round I've just read. So yay for books that aren't American. And then we have Elif Shafak's The Island of Missing Trees. So Scott from Gunpowder Fiction A Plot had said that this isn't as strong as her book as, is it 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world? Which I also really want to read. It's on my TBR tackle for this year. And so I'm actually glad to be getting to The Island of Missing Trees before 10 minutes 38 seconds, because I'd rather work up to one of her best books than start with one of her best books. I don't know if that makes any sense. But anyway, The Island of Missing Trees is about the forbidden relationship between a Greek Cypriot and a Turkish Cypriot. And that is also about, I think, the fig tree that witnesses both this relationship and also the ravages of war on the country. So that sounds interesting to me. I don't know a lot about Cyprus. The next book is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is about a female pilot from the 1920s who disappeared whilst flying over Antarctica. And then there's a modern day character of an actress who is playing this pilot in a film. I didn't vote for this one, I don't think, to get through to the judging, but having revisited the premise, I think this was probably one of the ones that was like a close run thing. I also have a Maggie Shipstead NetGalley that I need to get to as well, so I'm hoping good things for this book. Then I have The Love Songs by W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoree Fanonne Jeffers. This is about a woman's discovery and reckoning with her family's enslaved past as a way to embrace her heritage. It's compared to Sing Unburied Sing and The Water Dancer, both of which are books that I really enjoyed. And also this is a novel by a poet, which often hints at something pretty special. Then I have Damon Galgut's The Promise, which is about a white family in South Africa and the fracture that develops when the older generation deny the promise of land they have made to one of their servants, a black woman who's worked for them her whole life, much to the disgust of the younger generation. And I'm really looking forward to this one, in no small part because I want to read more and better done books about South Africa after my disappointing experience with is it J.M. Coetzee's Disgrace that I read last year. And then finally there is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and I've been meaning to read this author for ages. Danny over at Spinelli Speaks had kind of put her on my radar. And this book is about a haunted bookshop, so do I need to say any more? I'm looking forward to that one too. So did you judge for the Booktube quarterfinals? What did you think of your grouping? And, you know, are any of the books that I've ranked piquing your interest? And also, are you judging for this round too? Have you read any of the books that I'm about to embark upon? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love to chat books. And until next time, bye!